us, LIR.com, 927LIR.com, and YouTube. I am John Kalaboukas, the Bouk, with my friend Paul Zubulake, Zoobie. It's just like a broken record, my friend. Every week we are starting off with the Jets, and even more drama coming aboard. First we talk about Devontae Adams. Now we're talking about Mr. Reddick is in town.
I would say there's a lot to talk about, but is there a lot to talk about? So they're a 2-5 team. They are what their record says they are. They're a hot mess. They want folks to believe now, like another week is something new. It's going to change, and they're going to do it. But reality is setting in on the season. Injuries are starting to pile up in positions where they had no depth to start the season. The owner, Captain Chaos, Woody Johnson, just continues now to probably dig a bigger hole for himself. And then, of course, the absurd commentary of the fan base, the sports commentator world, who are now saying we not fired the head coach after 2 more losses. So it's almost like an embarrassment all the way around, John.
Well, I love that commentary, the commentary about Saleh should have never been fired, that they say, oh, the players loved him, and they were so upset seeing him go. I said, well, if you loved him so much, why didn't you play better, or why didn't you get some more wins?
I agree.
I saw the same thing. I was like, what, are you kidding me?
Well, it's funny because we did talk about this, and I did mention that I thought that Coach Saleh should have gotten the Buffalo game. So in the end, it doesn't matter. There's just more issues throughout the organization, how it's being run, what's actually happening at Florham Park, in the building. It's not a leak fest yet. But I think it's pretty obvious that I'll throw their names right out here right now. The Williams brothers, they seem to be 2 guys who aren't playing that well when Robert Saleh's not the head coach. And is there real animosity between guys like them and the quarterback, who is the de facto head coach, GM, and they're probably still their best player or in their top 5 of best players? Maybe not. Depends on the situation, because he has shown signs that he is coming off of a major injury, and he's not Superman. Unfortunately, he's been cast as Superman, right, John? And when you're coming up short, it's the bows and arrows are just gonna keep coming at him, because he's in the line of fire. And at 2-5, they're lucky, John. They get a game that they should win. If they lose in New England on Sunday, John, I can't even imagine the hysteria that's going to hit if that happens.
Joe B will probably be jumping off of a building if they go 2-6. But the headlines with the Patriots is they want to get rid of their coach already. He's the worst. There's dissension in the locker room. If the Jets can't beat this team, I don't know when they're going to win a game.
Right. So they are in a situation, and if you look at the standings after 7 weeks in the AFC, there's 4 teams that are standing out, right? Kansas City, the Ravens, the Texans, and the Bills. Those teams are standing out. That's I'm not going to say they're a lock. It's only 7 games. I'd be stunned if one of those 4 teams doesn't make it. Pittsburgh's at 5-2. They're the one shaky one that I would throw out there. But there are teams, John. There is a pile to say at 4-3 and 3-4, and even the Jets at 2-5, because you have to assume they're going to be 3-5. The talk will shift, John, and there'll be a new storyline for the Jets after they go 3-5. How the fan base will believe that they are headed in the right direction. And if you look at the schedule, you'll be able to see that the Jets are still going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I don't know if you've been noticing what the press. I mean, this is how low that the Jets have fallen. So they've been covering uh, Aaron Rodgers picking his nose. Okay, can you
Oh,
believe this nonsense?
it's
It's amazing that we've fallen this far that we have to worry about what Aaron Rodgers scratched his nose, picked his nose. Who gives a crap?
so right. So should we admit to America that most people pick their nose on occasion, and you do that in the privacy of you and your nose? So I know he was on McAfee today, so I saw a couple of things fly out of X regarding this story. Obviously, at the Bouk and Zoobie show, John bringing it up is, I mean, to talk about the absurdity of it, and that's more just the
Well,
world that we live in. Really, is the but it just started for him, right? And it's he just has to perform, and if he's not going to perform, he's going to get crushed.
yeah. Well, if you remember, it's funny how we're talking about picking noses now, but there's a great Seinfeld episode. You remember when he was dating like this model, and
Or
she
I think he want, yeah, right, yes,
and he
of
was
course,
in the
yes,
cab and he was just scratching the
yeah.
side of his nose, and she happened to think that he was, and then all of a sudden she didn't want to date him anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Well, they
going
had
way
a
off track
breakup,
here.
as all of Seinfeld girlfriends. They always had a breakup, and even the beautiful ones had a breakup with them. And yeah, they thought about good ways of doing it. So maybe there's just that New York and picking of one's nose. But that's the situation. If you want to even talk about the game, there's not much to talk about. I mean, it's
Except
obvious
that
that
stupid
anybody,
interception.
right?
Except
Well,
that stupid interception
no,
right
no,
before
right,
the
right,
half.
right, right. So at the end of the half, and obviously in the beginning of the third quarter, that was the game set match. Now he's trying to fit it into a small spot. And John, if he makes that throw, which he's done numerous times this year, and it's completed, everyone's going to be like happy, and of course, you're going to go for more points, right? You got all the momentum at 15-6. You've got the ball with, there's still above a minute to go. We should be trying to get the ball downfield and get more points. So there is a little bit of that where it's always based on the result that you look at things. Now, it was definitely a momentum changer, but for them to fold in the second half is
Oh,
showing a much deeper problem with the team. Now they did take, our boy Xavier Newman did get injured, and that always is something that you hate to see, and it does kind of hurt, takes a little zing out of the team when that sort of stuff happens. So maybe that had something to do with it. The injuries to the secondary have piled up, John. Not that we were the only ones talking about this, we weren't. Lack of safety quality in the starters and no depth at safety to start the season. Talk about
yeah,
coming back to haunt them with now Tony Adams looking like he's going to be out multiple weeks.
yeah,
Michael
yeah,
Carter, who they just signed to an extension, only the Jets. They actually extend one of their own players. How rare is that? One of their own homegrown draft picks, a fifth round, a great story, good player. He signs the extension, John. He's been hurt all season.
yeah,
Uh, DJ Reed is still hurt. Guess what? He's an unrestricted free agent. Is he going to be rushing back to get for this team? Is he? Is he going to be rushing back for Captain Chaos and company? Who knows? We'll find out. So they're lucky because they have such a winnable game, even though it is on the road. It is such a winnable game that I believe they will get bailed out. The attitude will change, and everybody will be looking to Thursday night, incredibly, as the brutal schedule that the Jets started with, which we talked about at the beginning of the season, folks, is finally kind of coming to an end with this another Thursday game and another, what is it, in 11 days, 3 games, right? And it's
ridiculous.
just a
It's ridiculous.
competitive disadvantage. And they are, that's what we hopefully we're talking about next week, right? A big upcoming game against a very good AFC opponent where they can, in theory, based on, I'm sure if you're watching Jets Drive right now, the propaganda show, I wonder how many people are watching that show, John.
Oh
So I'm
God.
sure they're going to be waxing poetic after a 3-5 record, beating the Pats, probably something like, they should really win that game easily, but only time will tell, John.
Only time will tell. And I don't know if you've been watching. I mean, of course you've been watching, but Sauce Gardner's having a really bad year. Just a
I took another
really,
penalty, so now
really, really bad year.
well, what's the problem is, John, is now that he's got a couple of calls against him, and he's always been handsy the way he defends, now he's more likely to get flags, and the Jets are a team to easily throw more flags on. Now, thankfully, after I guess the begging on this show about the fiasco of the NFL, Roger Goodell and company felt the same. Now, I can't speak for every game I watched because you watch the red zone, you're seeing a lot of action. But in the Jet game, they actually let them play, right? For the most
They
part,
did.
we did not see the dreaded yellow flag sign in the bottom of our TV screens. So that was one mild thing that was nice to see. But just making Russell Wilson look good, and
Oh,
it really is just a terrible performance. Can't stop the run on defense. Now Hassan Reddick comes to town. He's going to be situational pass rushing this week. Does he get 10 to 15 snaps? We'll definitely keep an eye on that. It's it's beyond belief that he's now joining the team, John. I mean, you can't even make this up, right? 2-5. Now he's there. So, as a fan, what are you going to do? We're on the record. We're not. I'm not worrying about the draft next year. It's all about this year. And borderline playoff team is where I've been. Now they're obviously on the outside looking in. They're definitely not a borderline playoff team. And right now they're a top 10. They're, I believe it or not, based on schedule strength or lack their schedule of all the 2-5 teams was actually the weakest, John. So incredibly, they would be the fifth pick if the season ended today.
wow.
On
Wow.
the other end of that scale of the 2-5 teams, which we maybe have a quick segue to the blue team, and we can get back and forth because I don't want to get into the details of that Jet game because there's
No,
not
it's
much. I
awful.
don't want to get into it. But the Giants are also 2-5. They incredibly have the best opponents record, or the hardest opponents, right? So they are picking 10. It's irrelevant with 10 more
Wow.
games to go, but I just thought that was funny. The tale of two teams. John, Daniel Jones benched. The ship is sinking on the Giants coaching staff. Now it's obvious that the sides are there. Daboll and John Mara wanted to keep Saquon Barkley and Joe Shane, and I guess the what's the other partners with the Giants, like the Tishes were with Joe Shane on this Saquon Barkley signing because they could surely use him right now.
Oh yeah. And they can refer back to when Mara walked in. What was the name of that show? That
The Hard
Mara
Knock
walked
Show.
in.
The Hard Knock
Yeah.
Show. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mara was like questioning, and it, you
Well,
could see that he wanted Barkley to stay.
he said that he was worried about having nightmares
Right.
if they
Yeah,
if
that he would go
so.
to the Eagles. And guess what? You're having a nightmare.
Yep, he's having it, and he's had a rough go of it as an owner. He's got 2 Super Bowls in his pocket. I mean, one's in his dad's pocket, I guess, but you got to give him credit. He's been there. He cares. He tries to stay away and not meddle. What's actually happening is another story. His partner in the Meadowlands, Woody Johnson, has now been meddling for years, and we exposed it when we started doing this show. That was one of our themes, and now it's official. It's pretty
Yeah.
obvious he's been meddling for years, and now he's all in. He's got nowhere to hide now that he's kind of the de facto GM. So it's a tough world in the NFL, John, but both franchises have been down now for a long time. And the Giants they're gonna have to scrap it. and they're going to draft a quarterback next year. And we talked about this, I think was last time, right? That I would think that maybe Daboll survives because he would be good with a young quarterback.
Right.
That is to me that they'll maybe give this regime another year. But this is it. You look at the Steelers on the other side, who the Jets played, the stability, the not panicking, having a plan, just the attitude of the team, John. They had the fourth string center
Yeah.
playing,
Yeah.
and he held his own against Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams should have been in the backfield the whole game. He ends up with a half of assist. That was his statistics. Why is he bulletproof? I mentioned him already with his brother, talking about maybe there's dissension, and I have no evidence of that. But his play on the field is showing there's something going on, and no one questions this. Like the media is like, oh, he's untouchable, Sauce is untouchable, and I know you could argue they're the least of their problems, but they got to be held accountable too. They've been terrible against the run.
Well, I mean, I mentioned Quinnen Williams last week, like in general with these heavy set guys running out of gas. He's one of those guys. He's the one that I've been seeing huffing and puffing on on the field. He
John,
looked
John, it's
he
funny you did talk about that, and I always talk about the snap counts and saying that he had to get to 80% this year, and in which he's kind of been there, folks. The problem is it's getting plainly obvious that he may be a 65%er who's better playing 65%, and he's not huffing and puffing as much. To pay top dollar for a D tackle that's playing 65% of the plays, missing every third play,
yeah,
is not a good allocation of your funds. So this franchise, John, is going to have to take a long, hard look at a lot of things. They're going to have a new GM. I would say it's probably what 80-20 at this point. That's what's the way this is going to play out. That Rodgers will retire and Joe Douglas will get fired, and then they're going to just try to start this whole thing over again. So I know
again.
I'm jumping back and forth between the Giants and the Jets, but it's really incredible that these two teams may be drafting in the top 10 and both looking for a quarterback. Is that going to be the storyline that people are going to be talking about in March?
Yeah. And speaking of amount of snaps, you see how much Devontae Adams had? He was
He played.
practically in the entire game.
He looked fine. He
Yes, he
hustled
did.
back. He made
Yes,
that
he did.
tackle on the immortal. What was the kid's name? Beanie, whatever. It's just this kid, Beanie Williams. Undrafted free agent, the kid who had the two picks in the game. One was at the end of the first half. What a great play he made on that ball. He really did.
He
And then
did.
obviously the gift from Garrett Wilson was the other one. He got
Yeah.
them both. Mike Tomlin, I mean, it is funny, John, because I'm looking at my AFC playoff teams, and I'm actually doing very well again this year. Of course, the Jets will be one of the ones I'm getting wrong, but I left Pittsburgh out this year, and it's just so stupid. So just remind me, just make sure you just throw Pittsburgh in there no matter what.
Well, when you have three coaches since 1969, there is some stability.
And they know
That,
what they're doing. And they just
when I read that, I'm like, wow, when you think about it, that's crazy. Only
yeah.
three coaches since 1969.
And the Jets have had 40,
The
whatever
Jets
the
have had
number
three
is.
in 3 years or whatever, 5 years. Oh my God. Oh,
All right. So I know, like I said, jumping around for the fans, it's hard to come and talk about the Jets, as we joke, John. People who do this for a living and have their own pods and talking only about the Jets. I would look for a different line of work. I really would. I'm not kidding. Because one of the things I did do this week, much more than normal, I listened to a lot of other content. And the young, 35 to 40-year-old fan crying about this franchise, about how they never win. And they would probably look at us and say, well, at least you had those teams 2009, 2010. You had 2002. So there was some hope here and there. We have had some decent teams, obviously, But I can't believe it's just really funny to hear the complaining and the whining how they can't do it anymore. And we're doing this show. We started this show almost to go on the record about our teams. That's really one of the reasons I'm doing this, and I'm on the record. And unfortunately, Captain Chaos prediction is, I think, the best one out there, and it's just really revealing itself. And hopefully, they'll turn it around. I think I said this the same thing last week.
As Jet fans, that's the only thing we have right now is hope.
Well,
That's about it.
all
Because
right, so let's get them to 3-5. Just we'll talk about them more next week. The Giants, I don't know what to say about their prospects. I've kind of been on the record already. There's going to be a long season, so nothing much there. Around the league, I just have to. I'm going to bring up an obscure one, if that's okay, John.
sure, sure.
And actually, again, before I get to that, I just want to thank everybody for checking out our show, hanging in there with us on YouTube.com, Bouk and Zoobie, Spotify.com. Please like, subscribe to the episodes. Drives the algorithm. We're a word of mouth show. Hopefully, you're telling folks that if you like the content. If you don't, that's okay too. Please still watch. And let us know in the comments section. And of course, our friends at the world famous LIR.com, 927LIR.com, where they are continuing to broaden their reach and their internet radio, bringing back those hits from the 80s, 90s, probably in some 2000s in there too, John. So anyway, thanks again. So John, I want to bring this one up. This is one of those, if you just happen to be watching, right? So it's the red zone watching, and Tennessee is up early on Buffalo. It's 10-7. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't expect them to win this game, but this is a pretty good development. The AFC East is not looking that strong. Maybe, believe it or not, the Bills can lose this game. So the Tennessee gets they have the ball, so they're actually showing this in the red zone. They're in their own territory, up 10-7 in the second quarter, and it's 4th and 2. They
Oh no.
decide to go for it. I
Oh
think they
my
were on
God.
like their own 40. I'm not sure exactly what yard line they were on because I was like stunned that I'm watching this. And they show the fourth down play, and I'm like, what are these guys doing? They run it up the middle, the
Oh
absolute it's a jailbreak. The
wow.
running back gets buried for a 2-yard loss. John, that game was 10-7 when that happened. I believe was it 34-10 was the
Yeah,
final?
yeah. It was a blowout. It was a blowout.
So when you see that scroll through, you're like, oh, okay, whatever, another blowout for the Bills. And then you see this happen, and I'm like, what the heck are you doing? So Coach Callahan, whose dad, because this is getting into the whole nepotism in NFL coaching, this guy somehow gets a head coaching job. I have no idea why. He was like the OC for the Bengals, and he didn't even call the plays because Zach Taylor calls the plays. So he gets this job. I'm like, how did this guy get this job? And I was just like, what are you doing, bro? Your D's playing good. It's 10-7. The Bills were doing kind of nothing at that point. They get the ball, they go right in, they make it 14-10, and then it's over. So I just had to bring that one out because it's not like something if you just go through the scores, right? You're like, oh, you're not even going to talk about that game. Definitely were better games to talk about, right? I mean, I don't know. You want to throw something out there that you found interesting?
I mean, the teams that I selected are clearly legitimate. I mean, the Ravens again, the Lions again. Lions had a close game.
That was a good game.
Um,
Very
yeah,
good game against the Vikings. Excellent.
yeah, yeah. And again, Sam Darnold he's just playing well. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
he's
no, he's done
playing
well there.
well. I mean, you can't criticize the kid. He's been pretty stable, steady quarterback for them. I wish we had a steady quarterback, but no, I think it was really those two games that I was looking at. I mean, the Kansas City game was interesting, but pretty predictable what was going to happen there.
Winning with defense, John. Patrick Mahomes has 6 TDs and 8 interceptions, I believe, were the numbers, and
Yeah,
he's 6-0. Defense coach Spagnuolo, is somebody going to give this guy another chance to be a head coach?
probably
I guess
not.
I guess some
Probably
guys are
not.
just I guess they're not made out. He only really had the one job, and then he was interim with the Giants. So he really has not had another opportunity. I mean, it's like, okay, do they have to win another Super Bowl for that to happen? I really find that interesting that the guy like I just talked about, you hiring Brian Callahan. You know, his dad's was a coach, has been a
It's
coach for
ridiculous.
decades,
Yeah, it's
and then you got
ridiculous.
Spagnola's getting another Super Bowl ring as a D coordinator, and you're not hiring him. Very I don't know how this stuff works. But anyway, but yeah,
Well,
you're
there was
right.
a
Detroit is a, I that was a good. You know, I watched a decent amount of that. They seemed obviously surviving without Aiden Hutchinson for the first week. But yeah, no, that's John. It's not even close. The NFC North is killing it with 4 legitimate playoff teams in that division.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's obviously possible it happens. The winner and 3 wild cards. I think it's if you look at the performances. I mean, those teams are top teams.
They're
The
good
Bears, I
teams.
guess, is the weakest one, but they're looking promising as well now. So,
And in the NFL, there's been some really major injuries. I
uh,
mean, I don't know
you're right.
what's with the ruptured Achilles
Oy,
epidemic here. I mean,
yeah,
Watson. Wow, they spent so much money, gave
what a
up so
disaster.
much for him, and he's out. And like I said, that's a tough injury to come back from. Really
John,
tough.
and his guaranteed cap hits are astronomical in
It's
the back end
crazy.
of the contract. This is historic how bad this deal is. Talk about a fan base. They probably look at the Jet fan base and say, "You guys are complaining." Imagine being a Browns fan,
Ugh.
showing a lot of promise last year. You're right. He's down big. You're right. Injuries galore.
Your man
Um,
Ayuk got hurt.
Ayuk's out for the year. Another he
Yeah,
signed the big contract. Also, Godwin for the Bucks last night. That was a late game.
yeah.
2 Monday night games. Okay, I guess I'm not that into that, but bad loss for the Chargers losing to the Cardinals. Not that the Cardinals are a bad team; they're actually not a bad team. Caught some of those games. Yeah, no, it's a shame. I just hate to see these season-ending injuries. I mean, the 49ers. I mean, McCaffrey is the key, John. He's got to get back. They need him desperately. Yeah, like again, all roads lead through Kansas City and Baltimore in the AFC and the Lions, and that whole North. It's just going to be a battle down to the end. They're all going to play each other twice, right, John? So
Yes, they will.
but you would still think that the top team in the conference get the bye would still come from the North at this point. And also, yeah, we should mention Jaden Daniels also got hurt. The
Yeah,
Commanders,
yeah,
great young looking quarterback, but
yeah.
again, not the biggest guy, right? His build, he's lean, he's tall. You worry about these guys over the haul. So hopefully, he can get back because you want the young, exciting players in there. So, John, it happens every year, right? It is a war of attrition.
The thing with him is that he loves to run, and more opportunities to get hurt.
Sure, sure.
You know, I've seen him make these plays, and I'm saying, man, you just missed getting clocked. I
Now
mean,
yep, you're right. You're
he's a
right.
big guy's hitting him. Like you said, he's not a big guy. He's really not. And you got these 250, 300-pound guys that could run the 4.5 and at superhuman speed, and they're tackling people like that. So, and I have to say, every time I see Rodgers try to move or get away, I'm like, they're gonna snap him in half. I mean, he looks so vulnerable. It's crazy. If you want to talk about someone who's avoided injury up till now.
up till now. And then speaking of injuries and a player returning, and I guess maybe we'll close around the league because we do want to talk about maybe some winter sports quickly before we get to baseball.
Oh, I know.
The Miami Dolphins, where Tua Tagovailoa is actually practicing to come back. He better be wearing that freaking Guardian cap, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
And he is going to play. And the funniest thing ever is that Miami had a chance to win their game, but they were literally playing because Tyler Huntley got hurt. The immortal Tim Boyle at the end of the game, John, trying to
Oh.
lead the Dolphins down the field. And
Uh,
it's just
I didn't know that.
incredible that this guy is actually taking snaps. This is a franchise that had Mike White as their backup, didn't want to pay him. He's sitting on this Bills practice squad. This is beyond belief that Tim Boyle is playing important snaps because you can again argue a 3-4 team in the AFC is right in the mix for the playoffs. And if Tua does come back and he is healthy, they're a playoff team. So
Yeah.
dropping that game against one of the teams, the Colts, who are in the muck, they're in the same boat. Should they play Flacco or Richardson? They're playing Richardson, but is Flacco the guy to lead them to the playoffs? It's to think that we're talking about Joe Flacco in 2024, John, as a legitimate NFL quarterback. I mean, talk about a renaissance, man. This is unbelievable. So they may be better with them. So this is a lot. There's a lot of storylines in the NFL, as always.
Is Trevor Simeon right behind him?
Where is yeah, Trevor Siemian. And actually, speaking of Jets, ex-Jets, our monthly, I'll say, quarterly update on Denzel Mims. Is that where you know where I'm headed?
No,
Signing, you weren't. There's no way you thought I was bringing him up.
no.
Okay, signed with the UFL, which I did mention the last time we spoke about him. Is like he's got to go to the UFL, and he signed with the Anthony Beck led the St. Louis something, whatever that called. The Battle Hawks, I think, is their name. So Denzel Mims will be dressing in the spring, John. So for all those football maniacs after the Super Bowl who are pining for more football, you'll get to watch a little Denzel Mims on Sundays.
No, I thought you were going to talk about our man Adams that got released by Seattle.
Well, that's another one. I think that might have been last week, so it's a little old. We didn't mention it yet. Jamal Adams, I mean, talk about John, what can you say? What can you say? I mean, the guy was a high draft pick, a lot of promise. Unfortunately, played like his whole life. He's got like a chip on his shoulder and the wrong shoulder, right? He's in the wrong place. Doesn't seem like the nicest guy in the world. But ultimately, John, he was a safety who could not cover. And he was ultimately should have been a linebacker. And a few injuries have taken its toll. But it's so funny because with the Jet situation at safety, I'm surprised we're not hearing more of that talk. Bring back Jamal.
Hey, it was a great trade for the Jets. I'll tell you
It's
that much.
incredible. Yeah, that's the Joe. See, that's what has kept Joe Douglas with this job for all this time. It was that whole maneuvering with that trade, which led to all that great draft, and it's still pretty good despite Garrett Wilson's just absolute. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's easy for me to say catch everything that's thrown at you in the league, but I mean, it was just one of these. Only the Jets could have a play like that, right? Where it literally bounces off the shoulder pads right into the defender. I mean, it's one of the. It's just what was in his mind what's going on in his head when the ball's going to him that he couldn't get his hands out there to try to make that catch where he let it get on his body. It's just their whole
Crazy.
timing is off, right? The whole Rodgers throws the ball into these weird spots, and I think it surprises the receivers. Not weird spots. I mean, it was a great throw. I'm not criticizing Rodgers, but it just like they're just not used to having him as the quarterback,
They're
right?
not used to having passes right in their chest, I think.
It's like That's what's so crazy about this because I'm especially on the record as like, and you agreed. Rodgers is a 40-year-old quarterback. That's the guy we have. We don't have the MVP. He's still actually pretty decent. He's not a
He is.
bad player.
He is. He is.
So he's just, and then maybe by the end of the year, he'll maybe shut people up. That's why the Jets still have, and of course, I can't help but go back to them. They just always have a story, and we'll still talk about them, folks. But let's get off the NFL. I'm sorry, unless you had something else.
No,
So
we
you,
keep
you're
going
prob
back to the Jets.
Right, right. So we are actually doing our show on Tuesday night, opening day for the Knicks. We'll be dropping this on Wednesday morning. We just kind of changed the schedule a little bit due to the just how can you talk about sports after the weekend we had. So quickly, I'll give you the floor for some Knicks talk. The Rangers are off to a good start. I'll see you in April.
Well, I'm going to speak about someone who used to be on the Knicks that has an injury. Hartenstein is going to be out 5 to 6 weeks with a hand injury,
A
and they
hand
think it.
injury.
Yeah, yep, he fractured um, his wrist somehow, and they said they're going to reevaluate him in 5 to 6 weeks. I read now. Before they said, "Oh, he'll be out 5 to 6 weeks." No, they're going to reevaluate him.
Wow.
So Embiid out again with an injury. Just signed a huge extension. Achua is going to be out a couple of weeks. He
Wow,
he ended
really?
up getting he ended up getting hurt uh, again with the preseason game. Sometimes I think they need to rest these guys. But yeah, the Knicks are starting off with the Celtics tonight with their brand new lineup. I I think we look very, very good. Very good. We'll see how tough Mr. Towns is. I want to see some toughness out of him. But overall, I'm happy with what they've done to the team. I
Now,
really
did you
am.
tape the game tonight? Did you tape it?
No, I'm
No,
gonna
you'll
watch
just
it.
watch.
Yeah, when we
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna watch it. But overall, I'm very optimistic about them. I think we have a really good shot. But you know what? The NBA as a whole, especially the East, have really tough teams. I mean, just Yanni's back, healthy. Milwaukee looks great. If Embiid comes back, Philadelphia's tough. The Celtics, the Knicks, the Pacers are a very good team. I mean, the East is really, really tough. I mean, and when you start getting these players out of college, wow. I mean, you got some talent coming onto a lot of these teams. I mean, the Spurs this year are going to be a team to talk about this year.
Yeah, I know.
They look really good.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I had them last year as my surprise team. They stunk up the joint. We are not obviously doing an NBA preview. Sorry for our NBA fans. It just came up too quick. We'll probably do like a mid-season show with some folks who watch the NBA a lot.
Yeah, we could
If
actually get Mr. Gamal Smith again. We'll have him as a special guest.
All right, so we'll see on that. So anything else? Because again, it's so early to talk about
It's
the winter
early,
sports.
but
I know it's opening night, so there's a little
uh,
more excitement.
yeah. In the end, listen, the NBA has such great talent now. It's you could watch any team on any night and see all this brand new talent coming from college. You want to see how these players are going to do in the NBA. I
Sure.
I think the NBA is in a really good place as far as a league goes because there's really no clear team that's going to win outright. Everyone's saying the Celtics again. Uh, Again, they had the perfect way of getting to the playoffs last year.
All right. Well,
So
let's not go down that road again.
I
They
will leave
they were
that
the
alone this year.
champions. They won the championship.
Yes, they
They
did.
are the team
Yes,
to
they did.
beat until otherwise said. We'll
Correct.
talk about the NBA as the season
Oh,
progresses.
I have one thing that I want to say
Okay,
about
of
the
course.
Knicks.
The Knicks, go for it.
So this morning, I went to go get my hair cut, and I live on the South Shore of Long Island, pretty affluent area of South Shore. who is coming out of the barber chair, who I actually know from when my son played Little League with his son. That was over 20 years ago. Is the Knicks and Mets statistician coming out of a barber chair, and
Okay.
and
Who is he? Does he have a
I,
name?
I totally forgot his name. I'm sorry. I had it on the tip of my tongue and I totally just forgot it.
All right.
Anyway, so I don't think he's used to people knowing who he is
Well,
because
considering why would we know him? But
well,
okay.
occasionally
Yes.
they mention him on the telecast. They show
Okay.
him on camera for the
Hmm.
Mets and the Knicks. They refer to him all the time. He actually sits next to Mike Breen. You'll see him on the telecast and next
Was
to
it?
Gary Cohen during the Mets telecast.
Okay.
So I think he was a little stunned. So I said, "So the Knicks look pretty good." He didn't recognize who I was. I thought the Knicks look pretty good this year. What do you think? We're gonna win it this year? And he gave me like this stunned look. He goes, yeah, the Knicks will be good. And then he walked out. It's like, who's this nut that's yelling
Can't
out to me? I don't
recognize
even
him.
know who he is about the Knicks. And
There
I'm
you
like,
go. All right. Well, I don't know if that's worthy of a mention on the show, but I'm sure his family would be
well,
happy. Maybe they'll stumble into the episode. So,
he's been doing it many, many years, by the way. Many, many
I thought you
years.
were talking about this guy Barry. His name's Barry. He works the Knicks. He's been doing the Knicks like books like for decades. I met him years ago. I knew a friend of his, and they do show him. I've seen him go from dark hair to gray hair now. He sits right in the right where when the officials come over to talk to the people who are doing like the all the announcements for the game. He's like always there. This guy's name's Barry. I have no idea.
Uh,
He's probably thinking the same thing if he ever watches. He's like, how does that guy know his name? Because
right.
they do mention him every once in a while. So that's what I was thinking. Almost,
Is
I'm
it
like, is this the
Barry?
same guy? I don't know if it's the same
Maybe it
guy.
is. He is gray. He does have gray now.
Well, if he's
And he
right
lives
there,
in Merrick.
I
So
have no idea. He was from, yeah, well, I believe he was from Nassau County, so maybe that's the same dude. You
maybe.
never know.
Is it Barry?
Um,
Okay.
so he's kind of a heavy set guy, not overweight,
Yeah,
but heavy set.
yeah,
Maybe
yes,
it's him, John. I had
yeah.
no idea he did it for the Mets. I think he's like a business guy too. This is like part-time
He is
stuff. Yeah.
right, right. You're correct.
There
That's
you go. So
correct.
this guy is Barry. If you're out there, for some reason, Bouk and Zoobie remember you, and that says a lot more about us than you. All right. Let's
Anyway,
go. Wait, let's get we got to get through the show. It's all about one team is still playing, one team's going home. Everybody in this fan base is like waxing poetic about how wonderful it is that we didn't go to the World Series. So I can't wait to hear what you say about this with Bouk. Oh, John, I screwed it up. Baseball with Bouk. What
there
do you
we
got?
go. Uh, Listen, anyone who's a Met fan,
You're going to give me the same story.
no, as much as we hate to lose, and particularly to the Dodgers, if you listen, they were on a roll. They were on a roll. We both talked about it. I was hoping and praying that their starting pitching would get through the next 2 weeks. They did not. It was clearly, Manaea was out of gas. A lot of them were really out of gas. And when you have to go up against the lineup like the Dodgers, I mean, a killer 1-4 lineup. I mean, when you have Freddie Freeman, you have Mookie Betts, Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, who, everyone seems to forget that this guy hit a ton of home runs for them this year, a ton of home runs for the Mariners, I mean, and for the Blue Jays, which I still can't believe that they got rid of him. The guy's a very good player. And
Right,
then
but
you
he
have
did nothing. But he did nothing,
he
and
did
Freddie
nothing,
Freeman did not really play in this
right?
series.
But
So, okay,
but little Tommy Edman,
bingo,
the pest,
bingo. And
just
John,
what an incredible and why did the St. Louis Cardinals give up on this guy?
so I wanted to, that was my number one question for you. There were numerous guys that the Dodgers picked up at the deadline. Edman was one of them. Was Hernandez another one? And then the pitcher was another guy. It was, what was his name? Not, was it Phillips or
Flaherty.
Flaherty? So when that happened, was like the league like thinking this is like over, the Dodgers are going to win the World Series? Honestly, I don't remember that talk, but did they pick up Hernandez too at the trade deadline, or they had him all year? I don't know.
You talking about Kiki Hernandez?
No, Oscar Hernandez.
No. He was a 1 year deal for $22 million. He was looking for a multi-year deal, and the Dodgers, for some reason, were the only team that decided to give him an offer. I don't know if he's a Boris client, but uh, yeah, he didn't do much until the last game.
Yeah, he got a couple hits. So, I mean,
Right.
it's obviously Edman was the guy that killed them. Muncy
Killed
was
him.
a pain in the neck. He walked numerous times. The
Mm-hmm.
Mets pitching, obviously, the walking was terrible. The one thing, I mean, I agree with everybody out there who's got this like moral victory thought with the Mets, and it's true. I mean, but the problem is the team has not won the World Series since '86, and that you have a chance to get there and you don't. That doesn't mean it was a bad season, but you got to look at, it's not like a young team, John, that
No.
is just building towards something. It's actually an older team that they have to make a lot of decisions. And and it's not about criticizing Mendoza. The guy had a fantastic season. But organizationally, they decided that Senga should pitch in this series. And John, let's face it, that was really a terrible decision. And they
Yeah.
brought him in last night again, or 2 nights ago, I should say, when the game was a 3-run game.
Yes, it was.
So, I mean, you could argue that Ottavino would have been a better guy than having Senga. And I'm not arguing the Mets lost to the Dodgers because Adam Ottavino wasn't on the roster. I'm not saying that. But the Senga use was not the right decision. And last night, I just didn't understand it. I really didn't understand it.
And people forget that he totally forgot about Tyler McGill, which yes, he got blasted in one of the games, but
He should have been in the first guy over
right,
Maton.
right. Oh, Maton, don't even get me started with that guy.
Well, John, that's who came in when
He's awful. No, I'm saying he's awful.
Right,
We've
right.
been
No,
saying that he's been awful for it wasn't even this series. Every series he was awful, and yet he keeps bringing them in. He had Davy Johnson syndrome. That let's keep bringing the same guys over, and maybe they'll turn over a new leaf. The guy had nothing from the Milwaukee series through Philadelphia. Why do you keep bringing this guy in? When he brought him in, I said, forget it. Season's over with him.
Well, I mean, ultimately they lost because Manaea could not pitch into the fifth or sixth. That was it. Then there's no way the Mets are winning this game without Manaea throwing 6 innings, a shutout ball or 1-run ball. So let's put it that. Yeah, but bringing Maton in early, then what? Diaz in the 4th inning? Was it the 4th inning they brought him in?
I think it was
was it the 5th and the 6th? He pitched the 5th and the 6th, or the 4th and the 5th.
And then he brought in Stanek.
Right. So
and then Stanek he took out very quickly to bring in. I mean, again, we need help. We've been saying it all year, and we knew it was going to come to a point where you're saying, okay, who do we bring in? The bullpen has to be revamped.
John,
and hopefully guys come back from injuries. I mean, it's so.
John, John, the last 2 years, the Mets have had, we've talked about it, we joke about it, over 38 pitchers this year, or 37, whatever they had. So the MLB now, it's just to put in perspective about what you have to do each year to build your team up. But what are they going to, so I thought another thing about the game the other night. Jeff McNeil had a absolutely horrific at-bat, key at-bat against the lefty. Because of this ridiculous bullpen stuff, you could get some bad matchups, and they did it. It's actually a good strategy in a way where you could get a lefty in there to face McNeil. And John, that was a huge at bat, bases loaded, and he swung at a pitch. It was 5 feet outside on the
Yeah.
ear professional. You're that you're up you like and Iglesias in the end, obviously, who would have you rather
He
had
should have
up in
been
that
in there.
situation?
He should have pinch hit
Pinched
for
hit.
McNeil. I was saying
Right.
pinch hit. And who was this famous pitcher? This lefty, this
Yeah, right.
unhittable Anthony Banda, who was
Yeah.
actually with the Mets a couple of years ago that they released him and
Yes.
has been with
Right.
a million different teams.
Right.
Okay, you're not talking about Kershaw or some tough pitcher. You're talking about a guy that's been released and re-signed by a million different teams.
Right.
Yeah, no. I was saying pinch hit. I was actually saying on my TV, okay, pinch hit him now. Get him out of there.
That would have been a gutsy move. It was the right move
Yeah,
because they were already down 3-0. And this is not to sit here and say and criticize Mendoza as a manager. The guy had a tremendous season. I'm
he
happy he's the
did.
manager. He'll be back next year. The franchise has got a lot of question marks. Uh, Now everybody is now, Stearns and Cohen are geniuses now. Good for them. I'm happy for him. Stearns looks like he knows what he's doing. The jury's still out. I mean, you could. So when it comes to GMs, they're geniuses one year, like Brian Cashman, and then they're idiots the next year. To switch quickly to the Yankees, I thought that Cashman and Boone should have been fired last year. So look what I know. They bring them both back, and they're in the World Series. So what's your thoughts there? Yeah, I know you're on the record. You thought they were going to waltz in. They pretty much did. And
They're
again,
gonna.
they pitched
I
to
hate to
Stanton.
say it. I
They
hate to say it. This is the first time I'm gonna say this. Okay,
yes,
and by the way, I know you're gonna make your point about Stanton, the
right.
easiest man in the world in baseball to pitch, and what do they keep? Every single one of his home runs were mistakes. I mean, he made them pay for the mistakes, but it's over the center of the plate in crucial moments with supposedly good pitchers. I'm like, what are you doing? And the funny thing is when he hit that home run against the Cleveland, I'm saying to myself, even the announcers, Ron Darling was one of the announcers, and Jeff Francoeur, and they were saying, throw it on the outside, stick to your strategy. They were actually saying it during the telecast, basically saying to the Cleveland pitcher, just keep it outside and low, he'll swing. So the first one, of course, he swung at. Second one, and then he, he tries to jam him inside with a fastball, and then, I mean, you have some of the dumbest people in baseball when it comes to facing Stanton. Either
All right.
they don't have control or they're just plain stupid.
It's an interesting point. We talked about it last week. I saw it again. I texted you right away. I was laughing my butt off. I'm like, what a meatball that is right over the plate. When Stanton hits one, it is a bomb. He definitely can be pitched to. So that's going to be something to watch in the Dodger Mets Yankee World Series. Are you there's a lot of Met fans will not be watching this. I'm not going to lie. I can't be telling you I'm going to be running up to my TV because when is it starting? Is it Friday night,
Friday,
game one?
Friday,
And who's got the home advantage in this? Do we know?
Yankees. No, excuse me. No, excuse me. It's the team with the most wins, so it's actually going to be the Dodgers.
So the Dodgers. The Dodgers.
Yeah,
So the series is
98 wins.
opening. Okay, the series is opening Friday night. LA. Are they? I mean, are they going to have to do this bullpen stuff in the World Series? I guess that's what their thing is.
100%. That's
100%.
This is
They
the
don't
first
have.
time I'm
Yeah.
going to say this for the Yankees. They actually have the advantage with pitching this time because the Dodgers, all their starting pitching, if you look at it, it's just Yamamoto. Flaherty is like a gun for hire, and as I said to you, that the Mets were going to crush him the second time around, and they did crush him the second time around. He's not that good of a pitcher. If you chase after his pitches, then clearly you're going to make him look a lot better than he is. So I would say that the Yankees, as much as I hate to say this, because I've been saying all year that they're not going to win the World Series, they definitely have the advantage in this series now,
All right. Well,
based on what I
okay.
saw with the Dodgers, because the Dodgers really, their relief pitching is okay, but they just, you know, I can't see them winning the World Series this way. Just
All
keep
right.
doing a
All right.
bullpen
So,
game.
all
They're
right.
gonna have
Let's
to do
put.
it twice. They're gonna have to do it twice in this series.
All right. What's the prediction? Let's go. Let's get our predictions out there. Well, what do you got?
As much as I hate to say this, I think it's gonna be Yankees in 6.
Yankees in 6. I will go with the Dodgers in 6, basically because I picked the Dodgers to go to the World Series with the Orioles and didn't pick a winner. So that's what I do. I wimp out, but I'll take them now. So yeah, hopefully will be interesting. And so we're talking probably Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I would assume, right? Or no, I guess
Yep.
not, right? They're going to play Friday, Saturday, then
And
they
then
got
they
to
have to
come
come
back to New
back.
York. So it'll be
Yes,
Monday.
Monday.
I might, hopefully, baseball is not going to do one of they don't do what the NBA does, like, and the NHL does, like they have their 7 game series take place over like 3 weeks at the last.
No, 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 no.
So only kidding there, because despite the insanely warm weather up here in the tri-state, um, that has been unbelievable. Talk about, I always tell people when you want to come to the tri-state area, you come in September and October. If you took that advice in 2024, you're probably like, is this San Diego? What the heck is going on?
It's incredible how we have just incredible weather here. Just incredible weather.
All right.
Actually,
Well, do you have any?
I'm looking
Yes.
at the schedule.
Hmm.
Wow, I thought it was the opposite way. I'm looking at MLB here, and it says Dodgers versus Yankees, which means that the first 2 games look like they're in New York.
All
No,
right, John. Well, you're giving out bad information to our folks
but it
out there.
usually
So,
goes with the team with
it,
the most victories.
John, I don't know who's got the home advantage. That's why I asked. Well, guess what, folks? It's Friday night. You've got some days. If you're relying on Bouk and Zoobie for your scheduling, I would advise not to. It's very hard now to find games. I find it absolutely it's brutal now to find games on
No, I was
TV.
correct. I was
Yes.
correct. They
All
gave
right.
erroneous information. It is in LA. Thank you.
All right, so you
Kalaboukas
gave
knows his
correct
baseball.
information in the beginning. All right,
Yeah.
so let's before we close out this week, I want to hear about quickly your off-season moves for the Mets. If you want another week to think about it, I'll give it to you. But I do want to get your thoughts on who stays and who goes a week after or a few days after the season ended.
Players I would like to see stay as a backup. I like Jesse Winker just because of his energy, so he would be a decent signing. Iglesias, if we could get him cheap enough, can have him as a bench guy. Um, Manaya, I think would be a very good signing. If, again, reasonable signing. I like Luis Severino. I think he will continue. He's a bulldog. I like him. Um, Quintana, say goodbye. Maitan, say goodbye. Stanek is a free agent. He wouldn't be a bad piece to have back in.
All right.
But they really need to concentrate, as far as I'm concerned, on 2 people. I want Pete back, but at a reasonable number. I don't think Pete is worth $25 million a year. I don't think he should be getting $200 million a year. But if he loves Queens so much and he loves the Mets so much, guess what? You're gonna have to give a little bit of a reasonable number. The original offer that they gave him 158 million for 7 years, I thought was a very reasonable offer, and I think if they're putting that back on the table, he should take that in a second.
All
Okay,
right. So that's your
uh,
prediction for him, and who's the other guy?
Soto. We need to
Oh,
concentrate on getting him
all
and
right.
outbidding the Yankees. Again, I believe he's saying all the right things. I love the Yankees. I love this team. Juan Soto loves money. And if money is the overriding factor, the Mets should be able to outbid the Yankees for him. I don't think there's going to be a team that could outbid the Mets. But let's see. Let's see.
John,
I mean, they're
I
both Boris clients.
right. And if you think the Yankees are going to win the World Series and Juan Soto is going to be a big part of it, and that he's going to go to the Mets, I think you're dreaming.
Okay.
And I will definitely, of course, who wouldn't want Juan Soto at any price? The guy's a great player. But I do want to make sure that you have a chance, John, to do the rant of the week.
Thanks, Paul. This is going to be a quick rant. As I was watching Shohei Ohtani batting against the Mets, it occurred to me again, for maybe the 100th time, why he has not been suspended, why he has not been investigated, why are we protecting this young man just because he's a baseball idol and he's an international star from Japan? Why has this leadership of MLB not chosen to go after Ohtani, but they did not allow Pete Rose to come back into the game and get into the Hall of Fame? Because what happened with Ohtani, I don't have to mention it, but I will mention it, that has no knowledge still. He still has no knowledge of all these millions that disappeared from his account from someone he was very personally close to. But we don't hear anything about the involvement of Ohtani. And I feel bad because I think about Pete Rose and all this gambling going on throughout the game. A man passes away, and what's going to happen? Oh, well, we kept him out because of gambling. Really? But you're not investigating one of the game's top players who, and it's actually, the amount is growing now. It's before it was 1 million, then it was 2 million. Now we're hearing upwards of 15 to 16 million, and they're going after his interpreter that he knew nothing about, that all these millions were disappearing. Guess what? This is a sham. MLB should be ashamed of themselves, and they should really be ashamed of what they did to Pete Rose, because you look at the Hall of Fame, and you got a lot of characters that were much, much worse than Pete Rose. Okay? Yeah, you have plenty of really bad characters in there. So, Paul, that's my rant of the week. I am tired of putting Ohtani on a pedestal, and he got away with it. The MLB let him get away with it, that he wasn't involved in some type of gambling scandal. So that's my rant.
Good rant, John. Great show. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Who do you got to thank?
As always, again, thank you to our producer, Zach Zubulake, and to our loyal listeners. Again, keep the feedback coming. We love comments on our website. Also, thanks to our community partners, Ronald McDonald House, Kids in Seats, and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. See you next week.